Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Coach Clay with Upper Class Sports, here today to talk about 5 tips for improving velocity and accuracy. Tip number 1 is using your lower half. When we try to explain using your lower half to kids, we have to break it down simply. There are some things that we see in the delivery that tell us easily that they're not using their lower half. One of them could be at the height of their leg lift, their back foot rolls backwards. Another one could be when they get the foot strike, they haven't even released the ball yet and their back foot's up off the ground. That tells us they're pitching off of their front foot and they're not pushing off of their back. So we have something, it's called push off the big toe. When we're explaining pushing off the big toe, we talk about the rubber. Now, if we're talking about the rubber, when you take the rubber out of the ground, it's a square box. You only see the top side of it. So when we're talking about pushing off the big toe, we're talking about on the way down with our leg, I want them to be pushing off of their big toe of their back foot and trying to flip that rubber, that square box, trying to flip it over. That's talking about pushing off the big toe. Now, when we're pushing off of the big toe, that's getting our momentum going forward. One of the things we do not want is our momentum going in any other direction except for towards the catcher's glove. And so when we have a guy who comes up and his back foot rolls back, well, now his momentum's going to second base. And so what he has to do is try to manipulate his mechanics because his momentum's going this way. He's got to try to get it to go this way, and with that, he's going to use some other part of his body to try to get the baseball delivered to home plate, and with that, now we have a flaw in the mechanics. So we have a drill, it's called the wall drill. This drill is going to help us feel what it feels like to push off the big toe, and this, just a simple wall is going to let us know if we have a flaw in our mechanics. We were talking about momentum and needing to go towards the catcher's glove. Well, the wall drill is going to let us know if our momentum is going back towards second base. So simply, the wall drill. Get up against a wall, use the base of the wall as the rubber. So we're gonna get all the way nudged up against it. I like to teach this out of the stretch because it's more simple, it's less complex, less movements. So if we go into the stretch from here up against the wall, the goal is to be able to lift our leg and drive forward without our hand touching the wall, without our hip touching the wall, and without our shoulder touching the wall. We should be able to go through our full delivery without touching the wall. So what we need to do is when we lift our leg and our leg is on our way down, we go up slow and then we go down and then we explode off the wall with our toe. It's gonna look a little something like this. Up slow, down explode. You should be able to do a full pitching motion without touching the wall with your backside. We are using our toe as we are coming down to explode off the wall and going in a forward direction. All right, so tip number 2 is alignment to home plate. As a pitcher, we want to make sure everything is going in a straight line. We want our direction to go towards the catcher's glove. So we have something that we like to talk about. It's called 5 points of the body. Now those 5 points of the body is number 1, it's the big toe. Number 2, it's the ankle. Number 3, it's the inside of the back knee. Number 4 is the front hip. And number 5 is the front shoulder. Now, we want these 5 points of the body all to be going in the home plate direction. So, when we're talking about the 5 points of the body, there isn't a correct order. And the correct order is big toe, ankle, knee, hip, and then the shoulder, it just follows. It just kind of goes along for the ride. So, thinking about tip number 1 being push off the big toe, our first movement forward needs to be with our big toe driving us forward. And when the big toe pushes forward, that drives the ankle forward, which drives the back knee forward, which then drives the hip forward. And then, like we said, the front shoulder just goes along for the ride. And if we are giving a 10 out of 10, this is something I like to say, is give me a 10 out of 10 of your big toe. If you're giving me a 7 out of 10, you're not pushing hard enough, which is then going to allow your body to possibly manipulate the mechanics to try to get the ball delivered to home plate. And when we're trying to talk about direction going forward, we need 100% of that direction going forward. So tip number 1 is super important in order to make tip number 2 be successful. Okay, so explaining 5 points of the body to a player, all we have to do is simply go back to tip number 1, push off the big toe, and then think about 5 strings tied around each part of the body. And your catcher is like the puppet master who's gonna direct where those body parts go. So we got a string tied around the big toe, which is gonna pull us and push us towards home plate. Then we got one around the ankle, which is gonna pull our ankle towards home plate. We want our foot in this position as we drive. And then when the ankle goes, the knee is then gonna go towards home plate, and the catcher's gonna yank that string and pull that knee towards home plate. And with that, we're gonna be driving the hip towards home plate, and we're gonna get our full alignment towards the catcher's glove, with the shoulder just following along for the ride. We don't want this motion. If we have our shoulder leading the way, now we're in trouble. So we need the lower half to guide the way, and then the upper body is just gonna follow. I like to show it with my hands this way. If the palm of my hand is the hip and my fingertips are the shoulders, this is what happens when you lead with the shoulders. The hip just stays back, and now our lower half is non-existent. But when we guide with the hip and the shoulders follow, now we've got this motion, which is gonna give us a kind of a catapult, a whip towards home plate. All right, so tip number 3 is talking about stability. Now, with stability, a lot of this comes from having a strong core. If our core is weak, we are not gonna have stability through the body. All that pushing off of the big toe and the 5 points of the body are gonna all go out the window if once it reaches the core, we're not strong, because it's not gonna transfer all of that energy that we're trying to build and develop into the hand and out the arm and releasing the baseball. So some of this you have to actually work at home, get on your back and do some core work. It's just the way it is. But when we're talking about stability, we're really talking about the front side. We cannot have a weak front side, and a weak front side is one that flies open very easily. We need to be able to have a firm front side, but in order to do so, we have to have stability, and we have to have stability through the core. All right, so tip number 4 is throwing through foot strike. We're now to the point where we're finally gonna release the baseball. Now, what I mean by throwing through foot strike, I mean when we get to foot strike, we don't just throw the baseball and stop. I mean we take all that energy, all that momentum that we've built up throughout the last 3 points, and we now put it through the catcher when we release the baseball, and we're going through our foot strike. So we have a drill, it's called the 2-step. I know you're thinking maybe that's the dance, the 2-step, but that's not really what we're talking about. What we're talking about is the 2-step after you throw. So this is a drill we like to do to get kids to understand, once they've got all that energy built up, how to get it to go through foot strike and then into the catcher's glove. So it's gonna look something like this. They lift, they're gonna drive, push off the big toe, get the 5 points of the body, have a nice firm front side. When they land, they're gonna throw the pitch, and they're gonna take 2 strong steps towards the catcher's glove. And I don't mean just 2 falling steps, I mean 2 strong steps. So they're gonna push so hard forward that it's gonna actually make their body go forward towards the catcher's glove. All right, so tip number 5, this is the hard one. This is practice. This is the one that's not always the fun one to do, but we have to do this. We have to practice this more than just in our bullpens. We need to take everything we learned here and take it down the line when we're playing catch with our teammate. We need to take this in the infield when we're fielding a ground ball. It's all the same stuff. It's all relative. You field the ground ball, and as you're moving forward, you're pushing off of your big toe. You're taking the 5 points of the body forward. You have the stability through the core, and then you're going through the throw, which is like going through foot strike. It's all the same stuff, but we have to work on this more than just in our bullpens. And I just want to say one other thing. If you're somebody who goes and takes lessons from somebody, your lessons are only going to take you so far. If you go to a lesson once a week, that's not enough. You need to take the stuff you learned from those pitching or those hitting or those fielding lessons, and you need to take them and go implement them the rest of the 6 days a week. 1 day a week's not going to do it. And doing this only in your bullpens is not gonna do it for you either. You need to take everything here and do it in practice as well. All right, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you guys liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, and please comment below and let us know if you learned anything new. Don't forget to also follow us on Instagram at UC Sports. And please take all this stuff that you learned in this video and go implement it at your practice when you're playing catch, fielding ground balls, throwing a bullpen. Work on this 5 days a week, and I promise you your game is gonna go to the next level. Thanks, guys.